Hello, this is Douglas Robinson. I am a solutions consultant with Beyond 20. Today we're going to be taking a look at the calendar in Cherwell. If you've not used the calendar before, you can get to it from any screen in Cherwell by clicking on the calendar icon up at the top left of the screen. This will bring up the default calendar that you have, and out of the box the default calendar is going to show you your open tasks and your closed tasks on a wonderful calendar screen. You usually get your current week as the view off on the right hand side. If you wanted to change the view that you were looking at, you could just click and hold while you drag over the selection of days that you want to view on your calendar, and then as soon as you let go or you release the left mouse button, you will see an updated view for the calendar that you were looking at. If you decide that you want to change the calendar that appears when you click on the default calendar button, you can do this by going to the options menu and then clicking on dashboards and calendars, and where it says calendar, you want to uncheck use default and then select calendar and use this button right here to actually select a calendar from one of these scope folders off on the left. By default it uses the My Tasks calendar, which you can see has 2 items in the calendar items list for open and closed tasks. If you were going to open one of these up and edit it, you would see the name for that item, the query that it uses to retrieve those records. You can define a color, start and end dates for how it's going to appear on the calendar, what start and end times, and also what shows up on the record for task in your calendar. And if you haven't selected an end date or the end date field isn't populated on that record, you can also select default date and time options for those items if there is no end date in that field. You can also decide whether or not someone can edit, drag, or resize these items from the calendar. Once you have a calendar selected, click OK, and as soon as you click OK on your dashboard options and go home, your selection for your default calendar will have updated. I do not have any special calendars that I would like to use, so I am going to stick with the default My Tasks calendar. Also, there is one very special feature that you may be interested in. If you do end up using the calendar in Cherwell, a question that comes up a lot is, how do I export this into Outlook, or how do I export this into a Google Calendar? And in order to do that, you would need a .ics file to import into your other calendaring application. And to get that ICS file from Cherwell, all you have to do is go to the File menu and then click on the Export button. Now, in addition to the ICS format that you can use to import your calendar somewhere else, you can also export it into several other file formats. If you wanted to get just a graphical representation of what your calendar looks like, you could export it to a JPEG, a PNG, you could export it to a PDF, or any of these other lovely formats. But for the purposes of this video, I'm going to export into an iCal format, or a .ics file. I'm going to select the file that I'd like to save it in, and I'm just going to pick this file that I exported earlier today and overwrite it. At the bottom here we have options for which items should be exported into this file. You can choose anything that displays on the view that you have of the calendar currently, or you can decide today, this week, this month, this year, or you can input a custom date range to make sure that you're exporting the items that you want and not any items that are outside of the range that you were trying to export. After you've exported the file, you'll get a notice letting you know that it's been exported to whatever directory you've selected. If for some reason it cannot find any items on this calendar, you will get a notice saying that there are no appointments in the given range. And we can see that by selecting a date range that we know does not have any calendar items. And we can see if we select a date range like tomorrow that does not have any items in the calendar, we will get a pop-up saying that there are no appointments to export. Now, if you have a Google Calendar and you would like to import the exported file that you had from Cherwell into that Google Calendar, you could do that by signing into your Google Calendar. I trust that you know how to do that. And then clicking on the arrow next to Other Calendars and selecting the Import Calendar button. From there, you just need to select the file for your calendar export and then choose which calendar you're going to be importing it into, and then press the Import button. After that, you will see the item that you exported from your Cherwell calendar show up into your Google Calendar, and you can click on it, you can edit it. Now, these are two separate events from one system to another, so obviously editing them in one system, like editing this event now that it's in your Google Calendar, will not sync back to Cherwell. And once you've exported it out of Cherwell, if you make any changes to that event in Cherwell, they will not populate into whatever calendar you've exported that file into and then imported somewhere else. So please keep that in mind, that if you are making changes to the records in that calendar, they may not always be up to date wherever you've exported them to and then imported them. This has been an instructional video. You can find other videos on our YouTube channel, available at youtube.com/beyond20llc. If you have any questions, feel free to post them in the comments section below.